You put this up just to spite me. Explain yourself right now.
Hey, family. Welcome back to Melanin Stories Hub with Marcus. If this is your first time here, let me just say, you're about to experience something powerful. And if you've been rocking with me for a minute, you already know what time it is. We don't do surface level storytelling here. We go deep. We pull at the threads of the heart, and we don't let go until the lesson lands. Now, before we jump in, I need you to do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button. I'm not just asking, I'm begging you, because this channel, it's a community. It's a space where we share stories that heal, that challenge, that transform. And every time you hit that subscribe button, you're saying, I'm here for it. I'm in this with you. Go ahead, do it now. I'll wait. All right. Let me ask you something. Have you ever wanted something, or someone, so badly that it scared you? I'm talking about that feeling where every logical bone in your bow die is screaming, don't do it. But your heart is saying, I need this. Now, what if I told you that the person you wanted didn't need you back, didn't want your money, your status, your power? What if they saw right through all the armor you've been wearing and still walked away? That's where we're going today. This is a story about Elias Hawthorne, a self-made billionaire who thought he had it all. Money, influence, control. But when Delaney Morgan walked into his life, everything he thought he knew about power got flipped upside down. She didn't bow. She didn't fawn. She didn't need him. And that drove him absolutely wild. So stick with me, because this is a story about possession, vulnerability, and the kind of love that makes even the most powerful man realize he's been living in chains. This is about a woman who refused to be owned, and a man who had to learn that the greatest power is knowing when to surrender. You ready? Let's go. Elias Hawthorne wasn't the kind of man who apologized. Not to his board, not to his competitors, and certainly not to the women who floated in and out of his life like well-dressed accessories. At 42, he had built Hawthorne Industries from the ground up, a financial empire that stretched from Wall Street to Silicon Valley, from luxury real estate to cutting-edge tech. Forbes had called him the man who never blinks. GQ had put him on the cover with the headline, Elias Hawthorne, cold steel, hot money. He wore that coldness like a second skin. His penthouse office on the 67th floor of the Hawthorne Tower was all floor-to-ceiling windows and steel edges. Minimalist, sharp, controlled. Just like him, he stood there most mornings, coffee in hand, looking down at the city like a king surveying his kingdom. He felt nothing, not satisfaction, not pride, just the hum of routine, the predictable thrill of another deal closed, another competitor crushed, another zero added to his net worth. People thought he had everything, and maybe, on paper, he did. But Elias knew the truth. He'd built an empire on the bones of his own loneliness. He'd traded connection for control, intimacy for influence. And for years, that trade had felt worth it. Till her. Elias hadn't always been this way. There was a time, a lifetime ago it seemed, when he'd been just a skinny kid named Eli, growing up in a rusted trailer park outside Detroit. His mother Caroline worked 2 jobs, day shift at a packaging plant, night shift cleaning office buildings downtown. She'd see homes smelling like bleach and exhaustion, her hands cracked and red. But she never complained, not once. Eli learned early that the world didn't give you anything. You had to take it. He was 8 years old the first time he stole a book. It was a hardcover on personal finance, left on a table at the public library. He'd been reading it in secret for weeks. But when the due date came, he couldn't return it. He needed it, so he slipped it into his backpack and walked out, heart pounding, waiting for someone to stop him. No one did. That book became his Bible. He read it until the pages fell apart, memorizing every principle, every strategy. He started mowing lawns, shoveling driveways, saving every dollar. By 16, he'd saved enough to buy his first stock, a single share of a tech company that tripled in value within a year. He was hooked. Money wasn't just currency. It was freedom, safety, power. By the time he was 18, his mother got sick. Breast cancer, stage 3. The medical bills piled up faster than he could count, each one a reminder of how fragile everything was. He worked 3 jobs, took out loans, did everything he could. It wasn't enough. Caroline Hawthorne died 2 weeks before Eli's 19th birthday, in a hospital room that smelled like disinfectant and defeat. Her last words to him were, "Don't let this world break you, baby. You hear me? Don't let it win." He didn't cry at her funeral. He couldn't. Crying was weakness, and weakness got you killed. So he buried his grief the same way he buried everything else, deep, where no one could touch it. He got to work. By 2005, Elias had made his first million flipping distressed real estate. By 30, he'd built Hawthorne Capital, a venture fund that turned startups into unicorns. By 35, he was a billionaire. And by 42, he'd forgotten what it felt like to need anyone. Women came and models. They's had socialites. They were beautiful, charming, and ultimately forgettable. Elias never let them get close. He had rules. No sleepovers, no feelings, no promises he couldn't keep. It worked until the morning Delaney Morgan walked into his office and shattered every rule he'd ever made. Delaney was supposed to be just another contractor. His assistant, a sharp woman named Vanessa, had hired her to oversee the art curation for the new headquarters. Elias didn't care much about art. To him, it was just another asset class, something you bought to diversify, to impress, to sell when the market peaked. But his PR team had been insistent. You need culture, Elias. You need to show the world that Hawthorne Industries isn't just about profit. It's about vision. So he signed off on the hire without even glancing at her resume. That was his first mistake. The second was assuming she'd be like everyone else. It was a Tuesday morning in late September when she walked in. Elias was on a call with Tokyo, negotiating the terms of a merger, when Vanessa knocked lightly and mouthed, "She's here." He waved her in without looking up. "Tell them we're not moving on price," Elias said into his headset, his eyes still on the contract spread across his desk. "They either accept our terms or we walk." There was a pause. Then a voice, smooth, measured, entirely unbothered, cut through the room. "If you need a minute, I can wait outside." Elias looked up and froze. Delaney Morgan stood just inside the doorway, her posture relaxed, but her gaze sharp. She was tall, maybe 5'9", with rich, deep brown skin that seemed to glow under the cold office lights. Her hair was pulled back into a sleek, low bun, and she wore a tailored navy blazer over a cream blouse, paired with wide-legged trousers that looked effortlessly expensive. But it wasn't her clothes that caught him. It was her eyes. Dark, steady, unflinching. She looked at him the way you'd look at anyone. Not with awe. Not with nervousness. Neutrality. Elias blinked, realizing he'd been staring. "I'll call you back," he said into the headset, ending the call without waiting for a response. He stood, buttoning his suit jacket, and extended a hand. "Mr. Hawthorne." "Elias." She stepped forward and shook his hand. Her grip was firm. "Confident." "Delaney Morgan," she said. "Thank you for the opportunity. I'm looking forward to working with you." Her voice was calm, professional. There was no attempt to charm, no eagerness to impress. Elias found it unsettling. "Elias is fine," he said, gesturing to the chair across from his desk. "We're not formal here." "Noted," she replied, sitting down and opening a leather portfolio. She didn't wait for him to start the conversation. She just dove in. "I've reviewed the floor plans for the new headquarters," Delaney said, pulling out a tablet. "And I have some initial thoughts. Your spaces are beautiful, architecturally striking, very clean lines, but they're also incredibly cold. If you want people to feel inspired when they walk in, we need to soften the edges. Introduce warmth, color, history." Elias leaned back in his chair, studying her. "History? Art isn't just decoration, Mr. Hawthorne. It's a conversation. It tells people what you value. Right now, your building says you value efficiency and power, which is fine. But if you want to attract top talent, if you want people to feel like Hawthorne Industries is a place where they can grow, you need to show them you value humanity too." Elias felt a flicker of something he couldn't name. Annoyance? Intrigue? "And you think art does that?" he asked. "No, it does." He raised an eyebrow. "You're confident. I'm experienced," Delaney corrected. "There's a difference." Elias almost smiled. "All right," he said. "Show me what you've got." And she did. For the next hour, Delaney walked him through her vision. She talked about artists he'd never heard of. Kehinde Wiley, Amy Sherald, Barclay L. Hendricks. She showed him images of bold, vibrant portraits that seemed to stare right through the screen. She explained color theory, spatial dynamics, the psychology of art placement. Elias listened. Really listened. It wasn't the information that captivated him, though it was impressive. It was the way she spoke, with passion, with authority, like she didn't need his approval. And when she was done, she closed her tablet and looked at him expectantly. "Well?" she asked. Elias tilted his head. "Well, what? Do you have questions? Concerns? Or are you one of those clients who says yes to everything and then changes their mind later?" He blinked, then laughed. Actually laughed. "I don't change my mind," he said. "Good. Neither do I." She stood, gathering her things. "I'll send over a full proposal by the end of the week. If you approve it, I can start sourcing pieces next month." "Sounds good." Delaney nodded and headed for the door. But before she left, she paused and glanced back at him. "One more thing," she said. "Yeah? Don't buy art because you think you're supposed to. Buy it because it moves you. Otherwise, it's just expensive wallpaper." And with that, she walked out. Elias sat there for a long moment, staring at the door she'd just closed. Vanessa poked her head in a few seconds later. "So," she asked, grinning, "what do you think?" Elias leaned back in his chair, a slow smile spreading across his face. "I think," he said, "this is going to be interesting. If you're still with me, drop a comment and let me know. Have you ever met someone who didn't play by your rules? Someone who made you rethink everything? Because that's what's happening to Elias right now. And trust me, it's about to get real." Over the next few weeks, Delaney became a fixture in Elias's world. She came to the office twice a week, sometimes more, depending on the project. She'd meet with architects, review mock-ups, walk the floors with a measuring tape and a notepad, completely in her element. Elias found excuses to be there when she was. He told himself it was just good business. He wanted to stay informed, involved, but deep down, he knew the truth. He wanted to watch her work. There was something mesmerizing about the way Delaney moved through a space. She'd stand in front of a blank wall for 5 minutes, head tilted, eyes narrowed, like she was seeing something no one else could. Then she'd pull out her tablet, sketch something quickly, and move on. She never second-guessed herself. She never asked for validation. And she certainly never seemed impressed by him. It was infuriating and intoxicating. One afternoon, Elias walked into the executive lounge to find Delaney standing in front of a massive abstract painting he'd purchased the week before. It was a bold piece, all jagged lines and dark colors. The artist was highly sought after, and Elias had paid nearly $2 million for it. Delaney stood there, arms crossed, frowning. "Problem?" Elias asked, stepping up beside her. She glanced at him. "Bought this?" "I did." "Why?" He shrugged. "The gallerist said it was good investment." Delaney sighed. "Of course he did." Elias bristled. "You don't like it." "It's not about whether I like it," Delaney said. "It's about whether it works. And it doesn't. I paid $2 million for that painting." "I'm sure you did. But it doesn't fit the space. It's too aggressive, too cold. You want something that invites people in, not something that pushes them away." Elias crossed his arms. "Maybe I like aggressive." Delaney turned to him, one eyebrow raised. "Do you? Or do you just like the idea of it?" He opened his mouth to respond, then closed it. She had a point. "What would you put here instead?" he asked. Delaney pulled out her tablet, scrolling through images. She stopped on one, a vibrant portrait of a black woman in a flowing yellow dress, her gaze direct and unapologetic. "This," Delaney said. "It's bold, but it's warm. It's confident, without being confrontational. And it centers a voice that's often overlooked." Elias studied the image. Then he looked at her. "You really believe that?" he asked quietly. "Believe what?" "That art can change the way people feel, the way they think?" Delaney met his gaze. "I know it can." There was a beat of silence. Then Elias nodded. "All right, get rid of the other one. Bring this in." Delaney blinked, surprised. "Just like that? You said it doesn't work. I trust your judgment." She smiled, a real smile, the first one he'd seen. "Careful, Mr. Hawthorne," she said. "People might think you're getting soft." Elias smirked. "Let them think what they want" became a pattern. Delaney would make a recommendation. Elias would push back. She'd explain her reasoning. And he'd give in, not because he had to, but because she was always right. And because he liked the way she challenged him. Most people in Elias's life told him what he wanted to hear. They agreed. They praised. They validated. Delaney didn't. If she thought he was wrong, she said so. If she thought he was being stubborn, she called him out. And if she thought he was missing the point entirely, she made sure he knew it. It was refreshing, terrifying, because the more time he spent with her, the more he realized something he'd been trying to ignore. He was falling for her. The shift happened slowly. At first, it was just professional admiration. Elias respected her expertise, her confidence, her vision. But then he started noticing other things. The way she tucked a loose curl behind her ear when she was deep in thought. The way her voice softened when she talked about an artist she loved. The way she laughed, genuinely, freely, when something caught her off guard. He noticed the small gold bracelet she wore on her left wrist, delicate and worn, like it had been passed down. He noticed the way she always ordered her coffee black, no sugar. He noticed that she hummed softly under her breath when she was measuring a wall or reviewing a sketch. He noticed everything, and the more he noticed, the harder it became to focus on anything else. Meetings blurred. Conference calls became background noise. His assistant had to repeat questions because his mind was always somewhere else. All her. One evening, after a particularly long day, Elias found himself alone in his office, staring out at the city. His phone buzzed. A text from Vanessa. Delaney left her portfolio in the conference room. Want me to drop it off at her place tomorrow? Elias typed back quickly. No, I'll take care of it. He grabbed the portfolio and headed out before he could second-guess himself. Delaney lived in Brooklyn, in a converted loft in Bed-Stuy. Elias had never been to her place, but the address was on file. He showed up unannounced, portfolio in hand, feeling like an idiot. When she opened the door, she looked surprised. Ayaz? You left this, he said, holding up the portfolio. Delaney blinked. You came all the way to Brooklyn to bring me my portfolio? You might need it. She crossed her arms, a small smile playing at her lips. I'm pretty sure Vanessa could have handled that. She could have. So why didn't you let her? Elias hesitated. Then, for the first time in a long time, he told the truth. Because I wanted to see you. Delaney's smile faded. She looked at him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Then she stepped aside. Come in. Her loft was nothing like his penthouse. Where his space was sleek and cold, hers was warm and lived in. There were bookshelves overflowing with art books and novels, framed prints on the walls, some famous, some by artists he didn't recognize. A worn leather couch with a knitted throw draped over the back. Candles on the coffee table, half burned. It felt like her. Want some tea? Delaney asked, heading toward the kitchen. Sure. Elias sat on the couch, taking it all in. This was her world, her sanctuary, and she'd let him now. Delaney returned a few minutes later with 2 mugs. She handed him one and sat down beside him, curling her legs underneath her. So, she said, you drove all the way to Brooklyn just to return my portfolio. Did. That's a little intense, Elias. He looked at her. I know. She took a sip of her tea, her eyes never leaving his. Why are you really here? She asked quietly. Elias set his mug down. Because I can't stop thinking about you. Delaney's breath hitched, just slightly. That's not a good idea, she said. I know. I work for you. I know, and I don't do this. I don't mix business with anything else. I know that, too. Delaney set her mug down and turned to face him fully. Then what do you want from me, Elias? He looked at her, really looked at her, at the way the dim light caught her features, at the way her guard was up, but just barely. "I don't know," he admitted, "but I know I can't keep pretending I don't feel this." Delaney closed her eyes, exhaling slowly. "You don't even know me?" she said. "Then let me." She opened her eyes. "It's not that simple." "Why not?" "Because—" She stopped, frustration flashing across her face. "Because men like you don't want women like me." "Not really." Elias frowned. "What does that mean?" Delaney stood, pacing to the window. "It means I've been here before," she said, her voice tight. "I've been the interesting one, the different one, the one who makes you feel something new, but it never lasts. Because at the end of the day, you want someone who fits into your world. And I don't." Elias stood, crossing the room to stand behind her. "You're right," he said quietly. "You don't fit into my world." Delaney's shoulders tensed. "But maybe," Elias continued. "That's the whole point." She turned to look at him, her eyes searching his. "I don't want someone who fits," Elias said. "I've had that. It's empty. I want someone who challenges me, who makes me think, who makes me feel like I'm not just going through the motions." Delaney's eyes glistened. "You don't know what you're asking for." "Then show me." For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then Delaney shook her head, a sad smile on her lips. "I can't do this tonight," she said softly. "I need to think." Elias nodded, even though it hurt. "Okay." He turned to leave, but she stopped him. "Elias." He looked back. "Thank you," she said, "for being honest." He gave her a small smile. "Always." Then he left. "All right, family. We need to pause here for a second, because what just happened? That was vulnerability. That was two people standing on the edge of something real, and both of them terrified to jump. If you've ever been there, if you've ever wanted something so badly, but been too scared to reach for it, hit that like button. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Because this story, it's just getting started. Let's keep going. Elias didn't sleep that night. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every word Delaney had said. "Men like you don't want women like me." It stung, because part of him wondered if she was right. He'd spent his entire adult life in control of his business, of his emotions, of his relationships. He picked women who were easy, beautiful, charming, and ultimately disposable. Women who didn't ask too much, who didn't dig too deep. Delaney was the opposite. She saw through him. She challenged him, and she scared the hell out of him. But that fear, it made him feel alive in a way he hadn't in years. Over the next few days, Elias tried to give Delaney space. He stayed out of her way when she came to the office. He didn't text. He didn't call. He let her work without hovering. But it was killing him. By Friday, he couldn't take it anymore. He found her in the executive lounge, reviewing the installation for a series of photographs that had just been delivered. She was standing on a ladder, adjusting the height of one of the frames. "Need help?" Elias asked from the doorway. Delaney glanced down at him. "I've got it." Delaney. "Elia, please." Her voice was firm, but not unkind. "Need to finish this?" He nodded and turned to leave. But then she spoke again. Way. He stopped. Delaney climbed down from the ladder and walked over to him. She looked tired, like she hadn't been sleeping either. I've been thinking, she said. And she took a breath. And I think you're right. We can't keep pretending this isn't happening. Elias's heart jumped. But, Delaney continued, if we do this, we do it my way. What does that mean? It means no games, no half measures. If you want to know me, really know me, then you have to be willing to show me who you are too. The real you. Not the billionaire. Not the guy on the Forbes cover. Just Elias. He stepped closer. I can do that. Can you? Delaney challenged. Because I don't think you've let anyone see the real you in a long time. Elias swallowed hard. She was right. Then teach me how, he said quietly. Delaney searched his eyes. Then, slowly, she nodded. One dinner, she said. No office. No business. Just us. And if you can sit across from me and be real, actually real, then we'll see. Elias felt hope flood through him. When? Tonight, Delaney said. 7 o'clock. I'll text you the address. Okay. She started to turn away, but Elias caught her hand. Delaney. She looked back. Thank you, he said, for giving me a chance. She gave him a small smile. Don't thank me yet. You've still got a lot to prove. Elias spent the rest of the day in a daze. He couldn't focus on work, couldn't sit still. He kept checking his phone, waiting for her text. At 5:30, it finally came. Sunnyside Cafe, Bedford Ave, Brooklyn, 7 p.m. Come as you are. Elias stared at the message. Come as you are. He looked down at his tailored suit, his Italian leather shoes, his Rolex. This wasn't him. Or maybe it was. Maybe this was all he'd let himself be for so long that he'd forgotten there was anything else. He went home and changed. Jeans, a simple black sweater, sneakers, no watch, no tie, no armor, just Elias. He arrived at Sunnyside Cafe at 6:55. It was a small, cozy spot, tucked between a bookstore and a vintage record shop, the kind of place that didn't take reservations, where the menu was handwritten on a chalkboard and the tables were mismatched. It was perfect. Delaney was already there, sitting in a corner booth. She looked up as he walked in, and her face softened. You came, she said. Of course I did. She smiled. Sit. He slid into the booth across from her, suddenly nervous in a way he hadn't been in years. You look different, Delaney said, her eyes scanning him. Good different, or bad different. Human different. Elias laughed, and some of the tension in his chest eased. A waitress came by and took their orders. Delaney got the jerk chicken. Elias got the oxtail. They both ordered sweet tea. And then, slowly, they started to talk. It started with the easy stuff. Favorite books, favorite movies, places they wanted to travel. But then Delaney leaned back and said, Tell me about your mom. Elias froze. No one asked about his mom. Not anymore. Why do you want to tell? He asked carefully. Because she made you, Delaney said simply. And I want to understand who you are. Elias looked down at his hands. Her name was Caroline, he said quietly. She worked 2 jobs to keep us afloat. We didn't have much, but she made sure I had everything I needed. Books, a safe place to sleep, food, on the table. She sound amazing. She was. His voice cracked. Just slightly. She died when I was 19. Cancer. Delaney reached across the table and placed her hand over his. I'm sorry, she said softly. Elias looked up at her, surprised by the gesture, by the warmth in her eyes. Was a long time ago, he said. That doesn't make it hurt less. He swallowed hard. No, it doesn't. They sat in silence for a moment, her hand still on his. Then Delaney spoke again. You carry her with you, she said. I can see it. How? The way you work. The way you fight for control. You're terrified of being powerless again. Elias felt his throat tighten. Yeah, I am. Delaney squeezed his hand. You don't have to be. Not with me. And in that moment, something inside Elias broke open. Not in a bad way. In a way that felt like relief. They talked for hours. Delaney told him about growing up in Philadelphia. About her parents, her mom, a nurse who worked nights, and her dad, a high school English teacher who filled their home with books and music. She told him about falling in love with art at 9 years old, standing in front of a Romer Bearden collage at the Philadelphia Museum of Art. I felt seen, she said, her eyes distant, like he was telling my story. Even though we'd never met. That's why you do this? Elias asked. Because you want other people to feel seen. Delaney nodded. Art isn't just decoration. It's a mirror. It shows us who we are, who we could be. Elias leaned forward. Is that what you see when you look at me? Delaney met his gaze. I see a man who's been running for so long that he forgot what he's running from. Elias exhaled slowly. You're not wrong. So stop running. I don't know how. Yes, you do, Delaney said. You just did. When the check came, Elias reached for it, but Delaney stopped him. We split it, she said. Delaney, I'm serious. If we're doing this, we do it as equals. Or we don't do it at all. Elias looked at her, at the fire in her eyes, the certainty in her voice, and he realized something. She wasn't afraid of him. She wasn't impressed by him. She just saw him, and that was everything. Okay, he said softly. We split it. Outside, the November air was crisp. They stood on the sidewalk, neither of them ready to leave. Thank you, Elias said, for tonight, for all of this. Delaney smiled. You did good, Hawthorne. Yeah? Yeah, she stepped closer, and for a moment, Elias thought she might kiss him, but instead, she reached up and touched his cheek, her thumb brushing his jawline. I'm still scared, she admitted. Me too, but I want to try. Elias's heart soared. Really? Delaney nodded. Really? He pulled her into his arms, holding her close, breathing in the scent of her perfume. Something soft and floral that he knew he'd never forget. Can I see you again? He asked. She pulled back, smiling. Better? Over the next few months, Elias and Delaney built something neither of them had expected. It wasn't easy. There were moments when Elias's need for control clashed with Delaney's independence. Times when he tried to fix problems she didn't need him to fix. Times when she pulled away because she was scared of getting hurt. But they kept showing up. They kept choosing each other. Elias started opening up in ways he never had before. He told Delaney about the nightmares he still had. Dreams where he was back in that hospital room, watching his mother die, helpless and alone. He told her about the guilt he carried. The belief that if he'd just made more money faster, maybe he could have saved her. And Delaney listened. She didn't try to, it's it. She didn't tell him it wasn't his fault. She just held him, and somehow that was enough. Delaney opened up, too. She told him about her ex, a man named Marcus, who'd loved the idea of her, but hated the reality, who'd wanted her to be softer, quieter, less ambitious. He told me I was too much, Delaney said one night as they sat on Elias's balcony, the city glittering below them. Too opinionated, too driven, too black. Elias's jaw tightened. He said that? Not in those words. But yeah, he wanted me to shrink, to make myself smaller so he could feel bigger. And you stayed? For a while, Delaney admitted, because I thought maybe he was right. Maybe I was too much. Elias turned to her, his eyes fierce. You're not too much. You're exactly enough. Delaney's eyes filled with tears. You don't know that. Yes, I do. He pulled her close, pressing a kiss to her forehead. You're brilliant, he said, and strong, and brave. And anyone who made you feel like you needed to be less doesn't deserve you. Delaney buried her face in his chest, her shoulders shaking, and Elias held her, whispering promises into her hair. They had their first real fight 3 months in. It started over something small. Elias had made a decision about the art installation without consulting Delaney first. She'd walked into the office to find a new piece hanging in the lobby, a sleek, modern sculpture that looked expensive and soulless. What is this? Delaney asked, her voice tight. Elias looked up from his desk. A sculpture. The artist is... I know who the artist is. Why is it here? I thought it'd look good, you thought? Or someone told you it would be a good investment. Elias bristled. Does it matter? Yes, it matters. Delaney's voice rose. This is my job, Elias. You hired me to curate this space, and then you just override me. I didn't override you. I just made a decision without me. That's my building. The words hung in the air, sharp and cutting. Delaney stared at him, hurt flashing across her face. Right, she said quietly. Your building. Your decision. Got it. She turned to leave, but Elias caught her arm. Delaney, wait. Let go of me. Please. I didn't mean it like that. Yes, you did. She pulled her arm free and walked out, leaving Elias standing there, feeling like an idiot. He called her that night. She didn't answer. He texted. No response. By the next morning, he was desperate. He showed up at her loft with coffee and an apology. When she opened the door, she looked exhausted. What do you want, Elias? To say I'm sorry. Delaney crossed her arm. For what? For being a controlling ass. For making you feel like your opinion doesn't matter. For acting like I know better when I clearly don't. She didn't respond. You were right, Elias continued. It's not just my building. It's our project. And I should have talked to you before making any changes. Delaney's expression softened, just slightly. I'm not one of your employees, she said, and I'm not one of those women who's going to smile and nod while you steamroll me. I know. Do you? Yes. He stepped closer. And I don't want you to be. I want you to call me out when I'm being an idiot. I want you to challenge me. I need that. Delaney looked at him for a long moment. Then she sighed. You're lucky I like you. Elias smiled. Does that mean I'm forgiven? It means you're on probation. I'll take it. She stepped aside, letting him in, and they spent the rest of the morning talking, laughing, rebuilding the trust that had been shaken. If you're still rocking with me, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment, because this is what real love looks like. It's not perfect. It's messy, but it's worth it. Let's keep going. By the time spring rolled around, Elias and Delaney had settled into a rhythm. They spent weekends exploring the city, hitting up art galleries in Chelsea, grabbing brunch in Harlem, walking through Prospect Park as the cherry blossoms bloomed. Elias started attending Delaney's work events. He stood in the back of gallery openings, watching her light up as she talked about the artists she loved. He met her friends, other curators, painters, photographers, and listened as they debated technique and theory late into the night. And Delaney started letting him in. She introduced him to her parents over FaceTime. Her mom, a warm woman with Delaney's smile, grilled him about his intentions. Her dad, quiet and thoughtful, asked him about his favorite book, The Autobiography of Malcolm X, Elias said, without hesitation. Her dad nodded, impressed. Good choice. After the call, Delaney looked at him, surprised. You actually read that? 3 times. She smiled, shaking her head. You continue to surprise me, Hawthorne. Good. I plan to keep doing that. One Saturday in early May, Delaney dragged Elias to an art fair in Brooklyn. It was crowded and chaotic, with vendors selling everything from original paintings to handmade jewelry. Elias felt out of place at first, but Delaney was in her element. She moved from booth to booth, stopping to talk to artists, asking about their process, their inspiration. She bought a small watercolor from a young woman who looked like she was about to cry with gratitude. You didn't have to that, the artist said. Yes, I did, Delaney replied. Your work is beautiful. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Elias watched her, something warm unfurling in his chest. Later, as they walked through the park, he asked, Why do you do that? Do what? Support artists like that. You could just buy from galleries. Big names. Delaney shrugged. Because I remember what it's like to be hungry. Not for food, for validation, for someone to see your work and say, this matters. I want to be that person for someone else. Elias stopped walking, pulling her to a halt. What? She asked. He looked at her, really looked at her, at the kindness in her eyes, the strength in her stance, the way she moved through the world with such purpose. I love you, he said. Delaney's breath caught. What? I love you, Delaney. Her eyes filled with tears. Elias, I know it's fast. I know we're still figuring this out, but I can't keep it in anymore. I love you. I love the way you see the world. I love the way you challenge me. I love the way you make me want to be better. And I just needed you to know. Delaney stared at him, tears streaming down her face. Then she kissed him. It was soft and slow and filled with everything she couldn't say. Well, they pulled apart. She pressed her forehead to his. I love you too, she whispered. Elias felt like he could fly. That summer was the best of Elias's life. He and Delaney spent long weekends at his house in the Hamptons, cooking together, reading on the beach, talking until the sun came up. They fought sometimes, about work, about boundaries, about the future, but they always came back to each other. And slowly, Elias started to let go. He stopped trying to control everything. Stopped needing to have all the answers. He learned to trust Delaney, to trust himself. He learned that love wasn't about possession. It was about partnership. In August, Delaney's career exploded. She was offered a position as lead curator for a major exhibition at the Whitney Museum, a showcase of contemporary Black artists that would run for 6 months. A dream opportunity, and it was going to be all-consuming. "I'm going to be working insane hours," Delaney said one night as they sat on his balcony. "I might not have as much time for this." Elias asked, raising an eyebrow. "Oh," he reached for her hand. "Delaney, this is your dream. I'm not going to stand in the way of that." "You're not worried about what?" "That we'll drift apart." Elias shook his head. "We won't, because I'll be here, cheering you on, supporting you, loving you, no matter how busy you get." Delaney's eyes filled with tears. "How did I get so lucky?" "I'm the lucky one." The exhibition opened in October to rave reviews. Elias stood in the gallery, watching people move through the space Delaney had created, and he felt an overwhelming sense of pride. She'd done this. She'd brought these voices to the forefront. She'd created something beautiful and important, and he got to love her. That night, after the opening reception, they went back to his penthouse. Delaney was exhausted, but glowing. "You were incredible tonight," Elias said, pulling her into his arms. "It was a team effort. Don't do that. Don't downplay what you did. This was all you." Delaney smiled, resting her head on his chest. "Thank you for being there, for believing in me, always." They stood there in silence for a moment, swaying slightly to music only they could hear. Then Delaney pulled back, looking up at him. "I want to tell you something," she said. "What?" "I'm happy. Like, really, truly happy. And that scares me." Elias frowned. "Why?" "Because I've never had this before, and I'm terrified of losing it." He cupped her face in his hands. "You're not going to lose me, Delaney. I'm not going anywhere. You promise?" "I promise." She kissed him, and he felt her fears melt away, replaced by something softer. Trust. By the time winter rolled around, they'd been together for over a year, and Elias knew. He knew she was it, the one. So he started planning. He reached out to her parents, asking for their blessing. He worked with a jeweler to design a ring, something simple but meaningful, with a stone the color of her favorite painting. And on a snowy evening in December, he took her to the Brooklyn Bridge. They walked hand in hand, the city lights reflecting off the snow, their breath misting in the cold air. When they reached the middle of the bridge, Elias stopped. "What?" Delaney asked, laughing. "Why are we stopping?" Elias turned to face her, his heart pounding. "Because I have something to ask you." Delaney's smile faded as she saw the look in his eyes. "Elias?" He dropped to one knee. Her hands flew to her mouth. "Delaney Morgan," Elias said, his voice steady despite the emotions flooding through him. "You walked into my life and changed everything. You taught me how to be vulnerable, how to trust, how to love. I don't want to spend another day without you." He pulled out the ring. "Will you marry me?" Delaney stared at him, tears streaming down her face. Then she nodded, laughing and crying at the same time. "Yes," she said. "Yes, yes, yes." Elias stood, slipping the ring onto her finger, and pulled her into his arms. And as the snow fell around them, he knew this was home. They got married the following summer, in a small ceremony in Philadelphia, surrounded by family and friends. Delaney wore a simple white dress, her hair in natural curls, her smile brighter than the sun. Elias wore a tailored suit, his eyes never leaving hers. When they exchanged vows, Delaney's voice shook. "You saw me when I didn't want to be seen," she said, "and you loved me anyway. You made me believe that I didn't have to choose between my dreams and my heart, that I could have both. And I'm so grateful for you." Elias's throat tightened. "You saved me," he said, "from a life that looked successful but felt empty. You taught me that real power isn't about control. It's about surrender. It's about trusting someone enough to let them in. And I trust you with everything I am." There wasn't a dry eye in the room. A year later, Delaney came home one evening with a secret. She found Elias in his study, reviewing contracts. "Hey," she said softly. He looked up, smiling. "Hey, beautiful. How was your day?" "Good, but I have something to tell you." Elias set down his pen. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong." She paused, then pulled something from her bag. "A pregnancy test. Positive." Elias stared at it, his mind going blank. Then he looked at her, eyes wide. "Are you?" Delaney nodded, tears in her eyes. "We're having a baby." Elias stood, crossing the room in 2 strides. He pulled her into his arms, holding her so tight, she laughed. "I can't believe it," he whispered. "Believe it?" He pulled back, cupping her face. "You're going to be an amazing mom, and you're going to be an amazing dad." Their daughter, Naima Elise Hawthorne, was born on a bright morning in May. She had Delaney's deep brown skin and Elias's green eyes. She was perfect. And as Elias held her for the first time, staring down at this tiny, miraculous person, he felt something shift inside him. All those years he'd spent building an empire, chasing success, trying to prove he was enough. It had all been leading to this. To her. To them. 5 years later, Naima was a bright, curious little girl who asked a million questions and loved art, just like her mama. One Sunday morning, as they sat around the breakfast table, Naima looked up at Delaney. "Mommy, how did you and Daddy fall in love?" Delaney glanced at Elias, a smile tugging at her lips. "Well, baby," she said, "Daddy thought he could have everything he wanted, and I had to teach him that love isn't about having. It's about choosing." Naima frowned, her little nose scrunching up. "What's the difference?" Elias leaned forward, brushing a curl out of his daughter's face. "Having means you take," he said gently. "Choosing means you give. And your mama taught me that the best things in life aren't the ones you take. They're the ones you're trusted with." Naima nodded, seeming satisfied, and went back to her pancakes. Delaney reached across the table, squeezing Elias's hand. "You did good," she whispered. "We did good," he corrected. And she smiled. Years passed. Naima grew. The business grew. Their love grew. There were challenges, of course. Sleepless nights, disagreements, moments of doubt. But through it all, they held on to the truth they'd learned that very first night in Brooklyn. Love isn't about perfection. It's about showing up. It's about being real. It's about choosing each other. Again and again, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. One evening, when Naima was 10, she found Elias standing in his office, looking at a framed photo on his desk. It was from their wedding day. Delaney in her white dress, Elias in his suit, both of them laughing, like they didn't have a care in the world. "Daddy?" Naima asked softly. He turned, smiling. "Hey, sweetheart, do you ever miss it? The way things were before?" Elias frowned. "Before what?" "Before us. Before Mommy. When it was just you and your work." Elias knelt down, pulling his daughter into his arms. "Not for a second," he said. "You and your mom are the best things that ever happened to me. Everything before you was just practice." Naima hugged him tight. "I love you, Daddy. I love you too, baby girl." That night, after Naima was asleep, Elias and Delaney sat on their balcony. The city stretched out below them. "She asked me if I missed my old life," Elias said. Delaney raised an eyebrow. "And what do you say?" "The truth. That first don't. Not even a little." Delaney rested her head on his shoulder. "You know, when I first met you, I thought you were impossible." "Impossible? How?" "Impossible to love. Too guarded. Too controlled." Elias smiled. "And now?" "Now I know you were just scared." "I was terrified. But you did it anyway," Delaney said softly. "You let me in. And that took more courage than anything else you've ever done." Elias turned to look at her, his heart full. "You make me brave," he said. "No," Delaney replied, her eyes shining. "You were always brave. You just needed someone to remind you." And as they sat there, wrapped in each other, Elias realized something. He'd spent his whole life trying to build something that would last. And he'd finally found it, not in money, not in power, but in love. "All right, family, we've reached the end, but before you go, I need you to hear this. Love isn't about possession. It's not about control. It's not about finding someone who completes you, or fixes you, or makes you whole. It's about finding someone who sees you, all of you, and chooses to walk with you anyway. Someone who challenges you. Someone who makes you better, not by changing who you are, but by believing in who you're becoming." Elias thought he could have everything, but Delaney taught him that the greatest things in life aren't taken. They're given freely, generously, with trust. That's a lesson we all need. So if you're out there right now, trying to force something that isn't meant to be forced, let this be your sign. Let go. Trust the process. And choose love, real love, over control every single time. If this story touched you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Drop a comment and tell me your thoughts. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, because we've got so many more stories to tell. I'm Marcus. This is Melanin Stories Hub. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.